Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers, viewers, friends of Vikra TV, welcome to the second part of Real Talk. We've been talking about the situation in Gaza, and I've got two very eminent people with me. Maqsood Ahmed, whom you know very well anyway, and for the first time I've got Laiba Khan, who's a local Bradford resident, a businesswoman here, who's joined me to talk about her thoughts, her ideas about what is happening and how we should respond to what is going on. Before we continue, there's been a lot of debate and discussion about the Remembrance Day and the Armistice Day. On Saturday, there's a march taking place in London, which has been organised, and the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have criticised this march because they feel that the march could disrupt what is going to be happening on Armistice Day itself. Now, the organisers have made it absolutely clear the march is going to be nowhere near the cenotaph, and the route of that is completely different, and it's going to be missing Whitehall altogether. The other important bit is that the march is going to be taking place in the afternoon, whereas the cenotaph, the memorial service, is going to be at 11 a.m. in the morning. So this is all propaganda which has been generated by ministers, particularly the Home Secretary, to try and ban this march. Yet they talk about British values. What are British values? Maqsood, who's been working, as I said, in the Home Office, he was the most senior advisor to the Home Secretary on equality and diversity. One of the most important British values is the role of the ability to have freedom of speech, to be able to say what you want without hurting anybody else. Maqsood, this decision, or the decision by the Home Secretary to maybe label this march as a hate march, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's very disappointing. The Home Secretary actually has not just made a number of comments before as well in the past with regards to hate marches. I've attended these so-called marches that she's referring to as hate, and they're not been hate. I've walked and marched with Jewish community, the Christian community, the Muslim community, young and old, from all backgrounds. It's absolutely nonsense. I think this is a scare tactics that she often brings in, especially the right-wing organisations and right-wing politicians. And I think she should be ashamed of herself. She's actually, instead of uniting communities, she's dividing communities through terminology and putting fear into their hearts and so forth. You know, we have been looking after the Jewish community, Hindu community, Muslim community, collectively as faith groups for, years. This is nothing new to us. We have done an excellent job. We will continue to do that. We will continue to defend the Jewish community if they've been verbally or physically attacked. And so we should, as Muslim community.
Exactly, yes.
Because we don't want the Jewish community to be hated. I, as a Muslim, know what it's like to be hated because of your faith. I will never tolerate that against the Jewish community or the Hindu community. We've been working with them for all my life, in a sense, on it. So for politicians to come up and try to divide us again, actually, it's not only below the belt, I think it's sickening.
Yeah.
It's not only sickening, it just sort of turns my sort of stomach every time I hear she comes on the television or she does a tweet and so forth.
I've got to the stage of now switching off the channel when I see her face.
She should be ashamed. She should be absolutely shameful, and I'll put that in my comments when I'm on social media. In fact, I'm getting tired and drained, just counteracting the politicians, when our politicians should be doing that, Iqbal.
Yeah.
You only fight the politicians with politicians. Why is an average person on the street fighting a politician? And Home Secretary, where are the Tory Conservatives with British values of fairness and justice? Why aren't they challenging their Home Secretary? Why is it that we have to do that? That the people, the women, the children, the others have to do that on a regular basis? Where are the Tory Conservatives, the good people, the Labour Member of Parliament, the good ones, the ones who say they're all for fairness and justice? Well, challenging somebody like the Home Secretary is about British values of fairness, and I don't see none of that.
None of that. And we've seen, the people have been asking for a ceasefire, and the two leaders of the two main parties have refused to sanction that or even speak about it on the grounds that Israel has the right to defend itself and needs to annihilate Hamas. But in the process, what they're justifying is the brutal murder of over 12,000 innocent people in Gaza itself and surrounding areas. So Laiba, obviously, I don't know whether you've been to any of those marches, but if somebody's saying it should be banned, how do you feel?
I feel distraught at the fact that she could make comments like this. I think it's absolutely, it's disrespectful, because I think it's Islamophobia will be higher than ever, and she's creating that division between religions by making such speeches. She is possibly giving us, possibly the increase in Islamophobia will
In
be
fact,
higher than ever.
We've seen, I'm going to stop you. We've got a call coming in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please tell me where you're calling from and what's your name?
Yeah, my name's Nishat. I'm calling from Harrow, Edgware.
Ishat.
Nishat from Harrow, Edgware. All I'm hearing on the news is Israel's got the right to defend itself. Israel's got the right to defend itself. LBC News, Israel's got the right to defend itself. All the news channels, Israel's got the right to defend itself. And they are just bombing left, right, and centre, hospitals, ambulances, innocent people, and they've trapped people. Where are people supposed to? They've been displaced already. Where are they supposed to go? They're telling to go from north to south, but it's a trick. They're bombing the convoys. So,
Yes.
They're trapped in that area.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know whether you heard, Ishad, my comments earlier. They asked people to move from the north to the south, which people did, and then they started bombing the south as well.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're telling them to move from north to south, whatever, but there's no way to go, so they're bombing the convoys.
Do you think this is a deliberate push by Israel and supported by America to try and move that population away from there into Sinai?
It is supported by America and the IDF and also the Israeli intelligence services, which I don't want to mention, but they're all involved in this.
Right. Now we've seen
innocent children, families, and people have lost their families, and I just cannot see this any longer.
Yeah, I know. As
I'm not
Maqsood,
being social. My social life is completely destroyed because of all this. I'm not listening to any songs, music, whatsoever. I'm just making prayers and du'as for these poor people.
I mean, as Maqsood said, it's had a lot of dramatic trauma effect on people as well. But when you see, I don't know whether you've seen some of the social media.
Yeah.
People in America have been protesting in their councils, in their local elected assemblies, and saying, not in our name. Yeah. Do you feel that our councillors and our local elected members have failed on that ground?
They failed because they're all very well off. They're multimillionaires. All the MPs in the House of Lords, Conservative government, they've got several businesses which they're running as well. So they're playing with the millions of pounds. So each House of Lords MP in House of Lords is literally a multi-millionaire.
Well, we can't verify that. I know what you mean by they're all well off. They're a different class of people.
Well off, and they don't care for these things which are going on. Like Islam.
So
thank you.
Do you feel that our councillors, as I say, and MPs, we've lost Nishad, thank you very much. Sorry, coming back, Laiba, you were saying.
Yeah, so the rise in Islamophobia is definitely a concern, just as it would be for when she spoke for the Jewish community. I think rather than obviously, rather than the division, there should be unity between everyone, just like before the Nakba, before how the Jews, Christians and Muslims lived all together. I think people forget that is a very big part. Jerusalem is such a holy city, not just for Muslims, but for all religions,
all faiths,
of course, and just how people lived in unity and peace before the Zionist regime. I think hate speech is, I think she's the most absurd Home Secretary that I have ever come across in my 24 years.
Right,
definitely.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, coming back, I said that over 12,000, but the Health Ministry says 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000.
But we know for a fact that there's many more still buried under the rubble and they've not been accounted for. So inshallah, may Allah protect those who are still there in their homes or wherever they may be. Now, coming back, as a female, as a woman, you've seen the situation in Gaza. There's no medicine, there's no food. We've seen babies being born in very traumatic situations. How does that make you feel when we sit in our homes here? Because they're not allowing any food, any medication, anything to go in. Even the doctors have now said they want some peace. They want humanitarian aid to come in. Yet Israel and the Americans and the British, our government, are still saying no.
As a woman, this is a very, very important question. As a woman, this is the most traumatizing thing for me when I watch these videos, because the other day I viewed a video on Instagram, a woman who whose stomach was burnt to the crisp. She was dead, and they had
I'm
to
going to have to stop. You've got another caller. So obviously this program is for callers to come and share their thoughts as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Who's calling, please? Give me your name and where you're calling from.
Wa alaikum assalam. My name's Zainab. I'm calling from Leeds.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, Zainab.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Wa alaikum assalam.
Sister Zainab.
Yeah, I've just been watching the show, and I just wanted to make a point that
Please do.
you know, all of the points are very valid, and I think it's really crucial that as a community that we stand up for what is a humanitarian crisis. It is not just a matter of religion in this case. It is a matter of a humanitarian crisis.
Exactly, yes.
And I think it's not enough for us to call on the government to say, you know, condemn it and call for a ceasefire. It's important that how the Ukraine and Russia conflict was treated and sanctions were imposed. We need to be applying pressure to our MPs and our councillors that we have voted in to raise their voices and not just condemn and stay neutral in this issue, because there's international laws that are being broken.
Yes.
These hospitals are being bombarded. Innocent civilians, and what Israel is saying is they're using these, Hamas are using these people as human shields. No, they are not. They have got an extremely great intelligence unit in which they can differentiate between who is civilian and who is Hamas. Not one of these videos that we have seen have had soldiers or people with armed guns, etc.
Exactly, yes,
All of them are people in flip-flops, their kids, their mothers, their elderly. So what I want to say to everyone is we'll keep making noise, get out there and protest, put pressure on your MPs. Don't simply call for a ceasefire, because that is the minimal that we should be doing. And I hope that all of these politicians will be held to account for actually being complicit in these illegal war crimes. And hopefully,
Sister Zainab, can I ask you a question? I mean, we've got a lot of Muslim councillors in Leeds themselves.
yeah.
Do you feel that they have failed the Muslim community in Leeds?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if your party, like for the likes of Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, if they're making big statements like this, they've actually not called for a ceasefire. The UK have not supported the movement, the motion. Then we should be applying pressure. And what is the point of our vote and them getting seats when our voice has not been heard? This is a supposed democracy, and we're supposedly a country that supports human rights, that believes in freedom of speech and freedom of expression, yet none of our voices are being heard. And it's just, we need to hold our MPs and our councillors to account, because like the brother on the show said, the common person is not going to be heard, and why are we the ones that are raising our voice? Although saying that, we should all be making that noise, because it's quite frank that we have been failed, and in a bigger sense, we have failed the Palestinian innocent civilians. And a human life is a human life. So regardless of where there's violence, we are not in support of that, but we cannot justify Israel killing 2.3 million people, a mass massacre. We cannot justify mass genocide in the sense of, in the motion of self-defense. It is not self-defense.
Agreed.
And we've seen that through Motaz Aziza on Instagram. We've seen that through Gaza and girls. So if anyone wants to check these people out on Instagram, please go and see the truth for what it is, and just raise your voice. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much, Sister Zainab. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your thought. I hope, as the Sister Zainab has said, this is a sort of wake-up call for us, isn't it? For the Muslim community to stand up and be counted, which is what Maqsood has been saying also live. Now, I mean, obviously, as a woman, as a sister, you've been talking about sort of the horrific news that we've been seeing, the pictures that have been coming out from there. And as Sister Zainab said, this is a mass genocide that is taking place, yet the politicians are silent. Even local councillors, I mean, some councillors give them due respect. People in Oxford, in Manchester, and yesterday in Burnley and Pendle actually resigned from the Labour Party, and I say to them, may Allah bless you for what you've done.
Amen.
May Allah give you strength. And I say, if those Muslim councillors who still sit on the fence, on the grounds that we can sit in the political system and try and change it. Well, Maqsood and I have a very different view. Maqsood, let's share that with you, with our viewers. We've been fighting in these institutions for the last 40, 45 years. We've not been able to make an iota of difference. Islamophobia is growing, hate is growing against the Muslim community. Do you, Maqsood, think that now enough is enough, that we need to let these politicians know that they cannot rely on our vote sort of indefinitely?
Absolutely. I think I was a great believer in saying, going back about 30, 40 years ago, that we needed to get more brown and black faces politicians into the system. I believed in that. But sadly, after 40 years, if those people, if those faces cannot influence after 40 years or 30 years for fairness and justice, then we've got to really rethink again, saying, have they been the right people for us? Clearly, they haven't been the right people for us, because on a United Nations level, we need our international leaders to fight for fairness and justice, and they failed. We talk about our Arab countries and Muslim leaders, where are they? They completely failed, because they have not influenced at that level. So they failed on an international level. On a national level, our leaders have failed to even control the right-wing thinkers of the other side, of people like the Home Secretary and the others. So our leaders, our MPs have failed us in that as well. And on a local level, our councillors have failed. That's why the people are now getting onto the streets and marching on a regular basis, Iqbal Bhai, because our institution, our systems and our leaders who's supposed to be looking after the interest of fairness and justice for all, not just for us as Muslims, but for everybody.
Exactly.
But when it comes to the Muslim agenda, when it comes to the Palestinian agenda, when it comes to the fairness and justice for ourselves, we are being silenced. There are people now today actually will be out of a job next week or 2 days' time because they've been supporting the Palestinians. Where are our leaders? Why aren't they challenging that back? So we completely have relied on, in my view is, as a British citizen, in a sense, is that we have to reassess ourselves, because over the last 40 to 50 years, we have not influenced the political system, we have not influenced the narrative, we have not influenced the media, we have no influential skills or influencing power.
And this is despite having over 300 members of councillors in the Labour Party who signed a letter to Keir Starmer to say, we want you to now call for ceasefire. That after 40 years, as Maqsood says, we still know they have failed. Now, I had a Maulana Hayat Khan, who's also a presenter on this program, within the first week after the atrocious attacks, both by Hamas in the first week and the following that by Israel itself, and he said that those councillors who sit either in the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, if they sit silent while this is going on, while innocent people, women and children, are being butchered as they are doing at the moment, they will be asked on the Day of Judgment by Allah, what did you do when your brothers and sisters? And remember, it's not just Muslims, there are Christian victims in there as well.
Absolutely.
And they are also suffering at the hands of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. So we need to be mindful of that fact as well. Now, apartheid, one of the descriptions that even is used is the word apartheid. That Israel is an apartheid state. We're now hearing politicians in this country saying, if you use the word apartheid, that is anti-Semitic, right? Now, we fought. I mean, I had the fortune of meeting Nelson Mandela on 3 separate occasions because I was very active in the anti-apartheid movement in local government. Maqsood, how do you feel when you hear politicians are denying that this is apartheid taking place in Palestine?
I'm not surprised at all, Iqbal, by, when I talk about we have not influenced the narrative, this is precisely what I'm talking about, is that there are people, the United States and Israel are actually dictating the narrative to the world, and we have not actually challenged that narrative. So apartheid system to me is when it is a state which is occupying somebody else and they have 2 different rules and regulation laws.
Yep.
That's the apartheid system. The Palestinians for 75 years have not been living in a prison, because in prison you get 3 meals and you get exercise and you get that.
Visitors.
It's a concentration camp.
It's a concentration, yeah.
Where actually every day a woman is tested out, a child has been beaten up, journalists have been killed and murdered. This has been going on for 75 years. It's not happened on the 7th of October that people are trying to say. How can the world leaders allow this to happen for 75 years? It's unbelievable. I just can't understand why this has been happening except for this. In one sense, the powerful people at the very top level, led by the United States, because we are living in a United States of America empire, followed by the Europeans. In my view, it's an American empire which supports Israeli occupation. So the rest of the world, the 95% of the world, the 90% of the world now seriously have to look at the whole system and structures. So strategically, there is strategic terrorism taking place, as I define it. That strategic terrorism has killed more people on the basis of labelizing people. So what you do is when you want to start a war, the most powerful states will actually go into that.
That's a very important point there, but I just want to come back to LIBOR. That, you know, we've been discussing all sorts of issues. Coming back to young people, one of the things that affected South Africa more than anything else, and I spent an hour and a half with Nelson Mandela in a group of about 20 of us, and he told us very clearly that the one thing that really affected the South African government was the boycott. That when people's boycott started in this country and it spread around in Europe, that really affected the South African government economically. And that's when they came around the table and started to discuss, you know, with Nelson. Do you feel that that is something that we need to now really, as young people, as consumers, young and old, we need to now really focus on?
Absolutely. I have been looking into this, and the economy of Israel is falling miserably. Everyone that I have known, I have practically cancelled their subscriptions. There's Disney Plus, we have Starbucks, we have McDonald's. I still see people go to these places, and from where I'm from in Bradford, there are so many alternatives, and I find it highly shameful and disrespectful as Muslims or even as humans to be supporting fast food chains and these businesses that are supporting people or killing. We are basically drinking the blood of our brothers and sisters in a Starbucks cup. There's so many alternatives in Bradford. So if you are still going to McDonald's and Starbucks in a place like Bradford, you really need to set your priorities straight as a human being before a Muslim. We must take boycotting very seriously, and I think this is one of the main factors hurting the economy. We need to do that because there's nothing else that we can do. Boycotting is the most important thing right now. We must boycott all of these products that we are aware of under the Zionist regime. We must boycott every single product. There's Nestle that I've mentioned. There's a lot of products. We must find alternatives to this. I think it would be really helpful if young people could get maybe some TikToks together or some information of any good alternatives, rather than, of course, we can have a boycott page, but then any alternatives would highly help. Sometimes you do feel stuck. You know, these places are so normal to us. We'd quickly, the convenience of going to McDonald's in your car, but we must stop this because this is absolutely...
Okay, I mean, as Eliba says, you know, we need to be very selective. We need to look at some of the products that are coming out of Israel, particularly the occupied territories, and boycott those products. Now, I know people say, well, Asian people, Muslim people sell Coca-Cola in their shops, etc., etc. And that is an argument many people have made, you know, and I understand some of the conflict around that issues as well. But in my days, local authorities started boycotting South African companies. The government is now trying to stop local authorities from engaging in boycotts because they saw the benefit. The trying to boycott, stop local authorities in this country from boycotting Israel per se. Because in my days, as I said, we did boycott a lot of companies as well. And I remember being the subject of an inquiry for 5 years for a particular boycott that my local authority instituted at that particular time. Now, obviously, there are alternatives. Now, not all these companies necessarily do support Israel. The Co-op made an announcement yesterday saying that they will not be sourcing, and they haven't sourced any products from occupied territories, etc. So please follow what Liba has said. And I said this about 5 years ago in a speech that I made in Dewsbury. Don't just boycott supermarkets, because by boycotting them and not going in there and not buying these products doesn't affect them. I would go in there, pick up a product that has come from occupied territories, go and buy it at the counter, then go to customer service and say, I don't want this product because this is from an occupied territory, illegal settlements. Make them that transaction and make them cancel that transaction and then give it back to them. That will hurt them more than simply not going to a supermarket and not buying those products. I would urge everyone, particularly young people, to see whether they can do that in their local supermarket. I mean, we're running out of time shortly, unfortunately. As I say, we've got 5 minutes. Laiba, I mean, you know, we live in Bradford. Bradford's got a large Jewish community.
Yeah.
And the Jewish community is also, there's a Jewish community which says, not in our name.
Yes.
And in Bradford in particular, the Jewish community know very well that the Muslim community have been very supportive of the synagogue in Bradford. They actually saved it from going to ruin. Have you had any links with the Jewish community in Bradford?
I have not had any links with any Jewish person in my life. I think it's so important we respect Jewish people. They're the people of God. In the Torah clearly states the killing of innocents, just like the Quran. So we must differentiate between Zionism and Judaism. They are two separate things. We must respect the Jews. They are the people of God. And of course, the real Jews understand what the Torah states is to not own a land and also to not kill innocent, and they are obviously against both of them main factors. So definitely the abuse and the misconception and anti-Semitic views and comments we have about the Jews, definitely we need to educate ourselves more on this and definitely be able to differentiate between Jews and Zionisms, because before the Zionist regime, the Jews, Muslims and Christians all lived peacefully in Palestine. There are many Jews who stand up for this cause. I highly respect them. There's many Jews in Israel, videos circulating where they are being physically assaulted.
They're being abused as well.
Yeah, so I think it's very special that they can stand up for us, and it's more harder for them to stand up for us. We must highly respect them for that. Definitely, yeah.
Okay. I mean, Maksud, you talked about, you know, working with the Jewish community for years and years, hand in hand, protecting them as well from hate. I mean, do you see that sentiment still continuing within the Jewish community? I mean, you've got the second largest Jewish community in the country, haven't you?
Yes, we have, and I think it's getting stronger and stronger, our relationship with the Jewish community. But we must always do our best to do that. We can't be complacent, in a sense, because don't forget, the more we try to unite people, there are people out there trying to divide us, particularly politicians and the others, and the news and so forth. So we are actually consistently have to make sure that we protect each other. You know, that our synagogues don't get attacked, our mosques don't get attacked, whether it's verbal or physical. It's abhorrent, and we shouldn't be doing that, because Islamophobia and anti-Semitism is on the rise. But there's a reason why it's on the rise. It's because there are people out there in very powerful positions.
It's like the politicians.
Thank you. So we can't continue to keep doing this.
Comments, yes.
We have to work together as a community, but everyone's got a responsibility to do that. And politicians, don't forget, under the Equality Act themselves have to do that. They must be promoting diversity
like they're
and
ignoring
inclusion.
it,
They're ignoring it completely. They are very, very selective of what they want to do. And that's the challenge that we have to actually also take on board.
All right, before we come to a conclusion, I mean, I just want to show this. I don't know if people can see this. This an article today in the Mail, which talks about, you know, what could happen in this country if the Muslim community does not vote for Labour anymore. There's 30 possible seats that could go to somebody else, which could have a major impact on Keir Starmer actually become the next Prime Minister of this country. So what I'm saying to people, and we've spoken about this earlier, is look at your vote. Make sure next time round you make it count. And Maksud, thank you very much for coming. This is not the first time you've been on my program, and I'm deeply grateful to you for coming all the way from Manchester, sharing your thoughts and your ideas. And I hope what he has said will resonate with people, and they will follow some of the thoughts that he shared with us. Laiba, I'm deeply, deeply grateful as a young person for coming on my program. First time on my program. I hope this is not going to be the last time. I hope I'll see you. As a young person, she has shared her trauma, her thoughts, the fact that when she's witnessed these terrible, terrible events taking place on our screen, how it makes her feel that, you know, she couldn't sleep, she was crying all night long. And I'm sure there are many, many, many people like her around the country as well. The question now is, what can we do? And I go back to her earlier points at the beginning. If we can contribute, you know, whatever you can, because we know our brothers and sisters are going to be will be needing lots and lots of support. Al-Qaeda has a hospital there and they provide support. Other charities are doing the same. If we can't do that, at least make dua for our brothers and sisters in Palestine, because duas are also powerful as well. But the third most important thing as far as I'm concerned is start looking at your conscience. Look at where you're voting next time, because your vote could save the lives of millions of Muslims, not just in Palestine, but across the world as well. May Allah be with you. I hope you found the program of interest, and inshallah we'll come back to this debate, because this is not going to end. And I hope I'll bring more guests next week who can shed more light and their thoughts about what we need to do as a Muslim community and how we need to unite. Forget the fact that we may Deobandi, Barelvi, Ahle Hadith, whatever we are. Hum ek kalma padhne wale hai. We believe in Allah and one Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the time. If we don't unite now, may Allah have mercy on us as well. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.